Imagine standing 14,000 feet above sea level, surrounded by freezing winds, with air so thin your lungs feel like they're collapsing. Your muscles are screaming for oxygen, your body is shutting down from hunger, and you still have an entire mountain to climb. But then, you place a single leaf into your mouth. Within minutes, the fatigue vanishes, the cold fades, your heart rate stabilizes, and your mind sharpens. Thousands of years before modern chemistry transformed it into a multi-billion-dollar illegal trade, ancient humans didn't look at this plant as a luxury, a crime, or a party drug. To them, it was the only thing keeping them alive. When we hear the word cocaine today, our minds immediately flash to specific dark imagery: international cartels, high-stakes law enforcement, back-alley transactions, and the devastating wreckage of modern addiction. It is a word heavy with taboo, tightly bound to criminal syndicates and global crises. But if you strip away the modern laboratories, the chemical processing, and the synthetic isolation, you find a completely different story. You find an ancient relationship between humanity and nature that stretches back over 80 centuries. Archaeologists excavating the dry, hyper-arid coastlines of Peru and the high valleys of the Andes stumbled upon a discovery that shattered their assumptions. Inside sacred burial sites, buried alongside 3,000-year-old mummies, they found small, woven pouches. When scientists chemically analyzed the hair and tissue of these beautifully preserved ancient humans, the results were undeniable. The samples tested positive for high concentrations of benzoylecgonine, the primary metabolic marker of cocaine. These ancient people weren't chasing a cheap thrill or escaping their reality. They were navigating one of the most hostile, unyielding landscapes on the planet. The Andes Mountains are a place of brutal extremes where the human body is constantly pushed to its absolute limits. To survive there, you need an evolutionary edge. And thousands of years ago, early humans found that edge hidden inside the leaves of a resilient green bush called Erythroxylum coca, the coca plant. But how did a primitive hunter-gatherer society discover the complex chemistry hidden within a basic green leaf 8,000 years ago? The answer reveals a staggering feat of ancient biohacking that literally allowed human civilization to conquer the mountains. To understand how ancient humans used this plant, we have to look at how it works in its raw form. A single, fresh coca leaf contains less than 1% of the pure alkaloid responsible for modern cocaine. Chewing the raw leaf does not produce an intense, overwhelming rush. Instead, it acts as a slow-releasing, mild stimulant, more akin to a powerful cup of coffee, or a sustained dose of time-released adrenaline. But ancient humans didn't just chew the leaf raw. They engineered a specific chemical catalyst to maximize its efficiency. Early groups discovered that if they chewed the leaves alongside a small piece of alkaline substance, like burned lime, crushed seashells, or the ash of quinoa plants, the chemical reaction unlocked the alkaloids far more effectively. The alkaline ash changed the pH balance in the mouth, allowing the active compounds to be absorbed directly into the bloodstream through the mucous membranes. This wasn't accidental foraging. It was deliberate, calculated chemistry practiced by societies without access to modern laboratories. With this botanical tool, the impossible became possible. The alkaloids constricted blood vessels, which reduced heat loss from the skin and kept the core body temperature stable in freezing sub-zero altitudes. It suppressed the production of ghrelin, the hormone responsible for hunger signals, allowing runners and laborers to travel massive distances across rugged terrain without stopping for food. Most importantly, it enhanced oxygen uptake, preventing the debilitating sickness caused by the thin mountain air. Without this unique relationship with the coca leaf, the grand stone cities of the Andes might never have existed. The massive infrastructure, the sprawling agricultural terraces, and the legendary messenger networks that ran thousands of miles across mountain peaks were all built on the stamina provided by this single plant. When the Inca Empire eventually rose to power, they recognized the immense strategic value of the leaf. They didn't ban it, they did the exact opposite. They elevated it to a state-controlled resource, transforming a tool of physical survival into the ultimate symbol of sacred authority. But this opens a deeper, more unsettling question. Why is the human brain uniquely wired to welcome this specific plant compound in the first place? There is a strange, fascinating reality embedded deep within human biology. Our brains possess highly specific neuroreceptors that perfectly lock into plant-based chemicals. When an ancient human chewed a coca leaf, the compounds traveled to the brain and blocked the reuptake of dopamine, the chemical responsible for reward, motivation, and pleasure. By blocking the cleanup crew, dopamine built up in the brain's synapses, creating a prolonged feeling of alertness, focus, and energy. From an evolutionary standpoint, this looks like a profound mystery. Why would a plant growing in the wild valleys of South America produce a chemical that perfectly manipulates the reward centers of the human mind? The truth is, the plant didn't create this chemical for us. In nature, the alkaloid inside the coca leaf serves a brutal purpose. It is a highly toxic insecticide. dead. When a predatory insect attempts to eat the plant's leaves, the sudden surge of concentrated alkaloids overloads the bug's nervous system, causing severe confusion, paralysis, or death. The plant engineered a chemical weapon to protect itself from being destroyed. But when a mammal, like a human or an ancient wild llama, consumes that same compound in tiny diluted amounts, the toxic defense mechanism turns into a psychological stimulant. It is a beautiful, accidental glitch of evolutionary biology. And across the ancient world, humans actively sought out these biological glitches. From early cave painters in Europe using psychoactive mushrooms, to African tribes using iboga roots, to South American societies chewing coca, altering consciousness was never viewed as a mistake or a moral failure. It was a deeply embedded human drive. To the ancients, altering your state of mind was not an escape from reality, it was an expansion of it. It was a way to find deeper meaning, to bond with the tribe, and to communicate with the unseen forces of the universe. In the Andes, the coca plant was considered a living deity, a gift from the earth goddess Pachamama. It was used to divine the future, to seal diplomatic alliances, and to accompany the dead into the afterlife. For 8,000 years, this plant was bound by strict cultural guardrails, protected by religious reverence, and consumed with profound discipline. But then, the world changed, and a sacred, slow-release ritual tool was stripped of its culture and concentrated by modern chemistry. The turning point in this story didn't happen in the mountains of Peru. It happened in a laboratory in Europe during the mid-19th century. In 1859, a German chemist named Albert Niemann isolated the pure alkaloid from the coca leaf for the very first time. He gave this newly isolated, hyper-concentrated white powder a new name, cocaine. By isolating the single active compound, modern science did something profoundly dangerous. It stripped away all of nature's built-in guardrails. When an ancient human chewed a leaf, the body had to work to break down the plant matter, slowly releasing tiny amounts of the alkaloid over hours. The physical act of chewing and the natural limitations of digestion made it almost impossible to overdose or experience extreme destructive spikes of euphoria. The plant was inherently balanced by its own biological structure and the cultural rituals that governed its use. But the isolated white powder bypassed all of that. It allowed a concentrated, massive dose of the chemical to hit the brain's dopamine pathways all at once, creating a violent spike of euphoria, followed by a crushing, desperate crash. In the late 1800s, Western society fell completely in love with this new miracle compound. It was hailed as a cure for fatigue, a treatment for depression, and was enthusiastically added to popular wines, patent medicines, and the original formula of Coca-Cola. Eminent minds like Sigmund Freud praised it as a therapeutic breakthrough, completely unaware of the dark psychological trap they were unlocking. It didn't take long for the illusion to shatter. As usage spread, the medical community witnessed an unprecedented wave of severe addiction, intense paranoia, and physical destruction. The substance that had sustained empires for thousands of years in its natural state had been transformed into a highly addictive chemical weapon. By the early 20th century, governments around the world rushed to ban the substance, kicking off a global war on drugs that would reshape modern history, fuel violent cartels, and tear apart entire communities across the Americas. When we look back across the vast expanse of human history, we are forced to confront an uncomfortable truth about ourselves. The coca plant never changed. The green leaf growing on the eastern slopes of the Andes Mountains today is genetically identical to the leaf that was chewed by ancient hunters 8,000 years ago. The plant is completely indifferent to our laws, our economics, and our struggles. It is simply a mirror, reflecting our own human nature back at us. When human beings approached the plant with humility, boundaries, and a deep respect for physical limitations, it served as a cornerstone of survival. It allowed an ancient civilization to thrive in a freezing world without oxygen, building wonders that still stand today. But when modern society approached the plant with a desire to extract, concentrate, and maximize its power for profit and immediate gratification, we unlocked a force of absolute chaos. The story of how ancient humans used cocaine is not a story about a drug. It is a story about the fragile boundary between harmony and excess. It challenges us to look at our modern life and ask ourselves what other natural tools we have stripped of their context, balance, and meaning in our endless pursuit of the next quick surge of dopamine. In the end, the ultimate danger was never hidden in the plant. It was always hidden inside us.